Face to face are not doing our normal Wednesday episode. This is a special day of a series of conferences and conversations on the topic of sports marketing and sports business. So I want to welcome our first guest, Jeff Yocom, who's the Senior VP of Executive Search for GameFace Inc. Good morning, Jeff, and it is early morning for you out there on the West Coast in Oregon, correct?
It is, yeah. Thanks for the invitation, Jeff. It's a little past 8 o'clock out here on the left coast, or the best coast, as I like to call it.
All right, there you go. Jeff, I want you to start out, if you would. Tell us a little bit about GameFace, a little bit about what you do, and then and how you got there, and then jump into the meat of it, which is about preparing for and getting a career in sports. We have a surprising number of high school sports marketing programs around the country, and even a larger number of high schoolers who would love to be a professional athlete. And when that doesn't work out, I think it's great for them to know there's still a way to stay close to their passion and their love, but maybe doing it on the business and marketing side.
Well, I think it's great to have a fallback plan, so it's really smart of them to not just put all their eggs in one basket, like being the best basketball player, on the planet. I learned at a pretty young age that I wasn't going to be playing sports professionally, so I thought basketball was a good start, soccer, golf. I had sports that I specialized in, and then as I got older, I recognized that my physical talents were not quite what they needed to be to actually get a professional career in that. So I focused on business. Back when I was growing up, I just thought business was something that really interested me as well. I think that the benefit of time for these students now is that they have much more specializations, more resources at their disposal. I applaud you, Jeff, for setting this up. This is a very neat medium for them, I think, to get great insights and exposure that I certainly never had a chance to get when I was young. So I started with GameFace 10 years ago. As you mentioned, I head up our executive search division. I'll try to get into a little bit more information about GameFace momentarily. But as we talked about previous, I was recruiting for 6 years, doing executive search for accounting and finance professionals, and just wasn't really excited at the end of my tenure with a really good organization. I had great training, great development, great people. But after 5 years or so, I kind of stopped drinking the Kool-Aid and started to feel like, hey, maybe there's something else that I should be doing. That I should be excited when I get out of bed in the morning. So I found a company called GameFace Incorporated up in Tualatin, Oregon. Most people probably haven't heard of Tualatin. It's a suburb of Portland, much like Nike is in Beaverton. So it's one of the suburbs of Portland. I was in Portland. Did some research on the company, went after the organization to try and get a job. They sent me a rejection letter saying that I didn't have any sports marketing experience, and that's what they needed. I kept that rejection letter. The founder of the company likes to chide me that I'm giving him a hard time by having it up. But for me, it was just kind of a badge of not giving up, not taking no for an answer. I found a way to get employed with GameFace, and I've been here now for 10 years. So I think it's a good story, hopefully, that people take, that no, as our founder likes to say, no is for now, it's not forever. So I took that to heart, and actually didn't know that he liked to say that before I was kind of living that. But what I'd like to do, if it's okay, I'd like to turn my computer screen around into kind of a PowerPoint that'll walk through the topic of jobs in sports. Jobs in sports are highly competitive. I suspect that your students are aware of that. It's very difficult to get into this business. It gets more so, I think, every day. However, they're at a great stage of their lives to take advantage of the fact that they know that and can position themselves a little better than those that just think they can trip over it, later in their career. So with that, if I can work the technology, I'm going to try and flip my screen around here, and let me know how it looks here when I get it up.
Okay, well, we can see it now, and now you've went full screen, and looks like we're good to roll.
Okay, so that's me. There's my Twitter handle. It's something that I've kind of adopted in the last year or two. It's something I enjoy. So from a technology standpoint, I try not to be a dinosaur. I enjoy sharing information there. Some of it personal, some of it professional. But there's my Twitter follow, as well as our website. So let me give you some context here. I'd like you to know who GameFace is, so you know who you're talking to and why you should take advice from someone that you're watching on a computer screen. GameFace was founded by Rob Cornelius in 1995. Rob had previously worked for the Los Angeles Clippers in the sales department. He was selling the Clippers when they were holding draft parties and the Lakers were across the street winning championships. This was the Showtime era. If you watch, NBA Classic or ESPN Classic, you probably can see that. You and I, Jeff, remember that time. Rob's a smart guy. He realized pretty quickly that he couldn't sell the Clippers because the product was really lousy. No one wanted to buy tickets, and that's what he was selling. So instead, he innovated, and he began the process of creating a framework and a strategy on how to sell the Clippers to businesses, to nonprofits, and then consumers. Well, it worked. The league took notice. The NBA's got a team marketing and business operations group now that it is more advanced and very sophisticated. But at the time, they recognized, hey, why is the Clippers, they're playing terribly on the court, but their attendance is going up. Rob was invited to lead trainings to show others in the league what he was doing in Los Angeles, and he quickly realized that there was an opportunity here. So in 1995, my company, GameFace, was born. It was started as a training organization, and Rob started training organizations like the Mets, the Dodgers, the old Seattle Supersonics, and we fast grew to a company that to date has trained over 25,000 executives with over 400 clients throughout sports. So Rob spent so much time in front offices getting to know that front office leadership that he was regularly asked who he might recommend for a specific opening within those offices. And after he got that question so many times, Rob's an entrepreneur, he recognized the opportunity to form another division, and that is GameFace Executive Search. So as I said earlier, since 2002, I've overseen that division. What do I do on a daily basis to give your students some context? I spend the majority of my time consulting with sports teams and live entertainment executives about their staffing issues, about their open positions, and about challenges that they're facing. And at times on their next move as well. Add a healthy amount of interviewing candidates for jobs into that, and that's kind of what I do on a full-time basis. Some of the clients that we've worked with this year include the Boston Celtics, the Green Bay Packers, DC United, Live Nation, and many more. And it should be mentioned that when I start working with these organizations, they never ask me, do you know someone that's interested in working in sports? That's just a given. So I think it's also wise to talk about sports marketing, and that's really going to be because our specialization at GameFace is sports marketing. Now, for all of those on this hangout or not, I do suggest that you pay attention because I'll cover information that I hope will benefit you. According to the Sports Business Journal, which is an industry trade publication that I hope many of you know about, and if you don't, you should start reading it. Sports marketing is a U.S. $200 billion industry, probably more than that. My numbers were a little old when I looked at it. But that includes sports-related advertising, venue signage, athlete endorsement, facility construction, sporting goods and licensed merchandise, event marketing services, sponsorship and ticket sales, via broadcast rights and multimedia, which include websites, books, and video rights. New content channels like the web, email, voice messaging, stream, video, and mobile, all those things are combining to create many new opportunities and challenges for sports marketers. I like to say that if you ask 10 different people for the definition of sports marketing, you'll get 11 different answers. So we'll try by defining what sports marketing is. I'll give you two definitions that I sourced via the. One is sports marketing is a form of marketing in which brands mainstream or alternative sports and the figures of these sports to connect with a broad and or targeted group of consumers. Countless companies and or brands have used sport marketing to build positive brand awareness, support retail and sales promotions, and gain an overall advantage in their market. Common examples of sport marketing include athlete endorsements, testimonials, event marketing. This next one's from Wikipedia. Sport marketing, or sports marketing in the United States, refers to the application of marketing principles and processes of products, for example, team events, and the marketing of non-sports products, cars, beverages, long-distance phone service, insurance, through association. So there's a couple of different definitions of sport marketing. Let's talk about career options in sport marketing. Hopefully these are some things that will interest your students here. As far as career options go, this isn't a comprehensive list, but it should give you an idea of the types of organizations that shape the sports industry. There are more career options than ever in the industry, as I suggested a minute ago. Mobile and all the digital things are really helping it grow. You have collegiate, you have professional sports that includes the major and minor leagues. And I like to remind people that minor league sports, if players are getting paid for doing it, it is professional sports. But they're just not seen on the same basis as major league property. League offices, which generally are based in New York City or in larger markets, but not always. Motorsports, professional bull riders, for another example, that's based in Pueblo, Colorado. MMA, the UFC is based in Las Vegas, and they're a lot of international business. Boxing, extreme and action sports, your students are more familiar with than I am, but I have two children, so you've got the X Games, Gravity Games, and a variety of other things there. Amateur sports, which include the Olympics, which are primarily composed of NGBs, that's national governing bodies. High school and major junior. Sure, college is amateur. I just think it deserves its own category, so it's in its own category there. You have venues, which include arenas, stadiums, civic centers. Included in that is facility management, and there's a large association. There's associations for all these things. There's an association that focuses strictly on facility and arena and venue management. So a lot of really good professionals in that space. Sporting good companies, just a few like Nike, Adidas, Under Armour. Sports marketing agencies and management firms include a wide variety of organizations. They include sports sponsorship consulting firms, advertising agencies, athlete and talent management agencies. Think Jerry Maguire, but much less sexy and much more cutthroat. And then sports media, again, TV, radio, digital, which is growing. And that's that probably deserves a conversation of its own, but we'll try to cover a little bit of a broader territory here. So hopefully you can read this slide. I'll walk through it a little bit more, but there are types of sports marketing jobs, and here I'm talking about the sports business, so we won't be hitting on player operations types of positions, which is a whole another area that someone could focus on that's in that space. In college, you have administrative positions from athletic directors at the top of the food chain down through specialists that do things like compliance, sports information directors that work with the media, development professionals that work with corporations on sponsorships, and some that are focused on athletic department fundraising. In professional sports, you're operating a business, and I'm sure you've all kind of heard about escalating player salaries. So the teams have to make up for those high expenses somewhere, and those levers are ticket sales, premium seating, PSLs, which are personal seat licenses. There's an interesting story right now about the Minnesota, the governor there talking just this week about PSLs and his distaste for them as it relates to the Vikings' new stadium. So I'm going to follow that closely because that's going to be an interesting story of how the political process affects the new stadium. Suites, sponsorships and advertising, media rights, you got TV, radio, and digital again. There are new technology positions, professional weren't common. Digital strategy, social media, CRM, which is customer relationship management. Venues, many times teams play in buildings that they don't own. Those venues have their own people that help run, program, and market the building. They can sell building sponsorship, group events for concerts, and traveling shows. Sporting goods, there's all kinds of positions here. Even though they aren't truly sports marketing positions, I did include some of the other fields that can help you get into sports, such as finance and accounting. I would love there. Information technology, the legal side of the business. Designers, there's so many designers at the Nikes and Adidas and Under Armour of the world that makes your head spin. Supply chain or logistics professionals in terms of getting product to market. Human resources. And then you have project management, which combines a variety of skills and works across divisions of a company. Sports marketing agencies. We've worked with agencies that handle the activation of corporations' portfolio of sports marketing assets, meaning the largest spenders in sports advertising have multiple agencies that they work with to maximize their investments. We work with other agencies that represent athletes and talent and are called on to provide not only the legal and financial guidance for their on-the-field work, but also help them earn off-the-field revenue via marketing, sponsorship, or endorsement. And back to sports media, again, there's all kinds of positions here that don't fit into the confines of sports marketing. I was reading quite a bit, and I have some friends at the Pac-12, and their new broadcasting platform, Pac-12 Media, out in California, is a fantastic read. It's very interesting to see the things that they've done from starting up a year ago to the distribution that they have now. So that's a pretty fascinating field that I think you can look at if that interests you as well.
So Jeff, we're still pretty accurate when we tell our students that if they have an interest in business, there is a place to use that business interest in the world of sports.
Absolutely. The business of sports is more sophisticated now than ever, Jeff, and I think it's getting more so. When I started with GameFace, I recognized that, hey, sports was behind. The sports business to me was 5 or 10 years behind in terms of technology. I think that you're now getting more best practices and more best of breed types of people hired in the industry, and so you have more people that are advancing the cause. But sports is still an industry that you have a lot of followers. Less leaders, a lot of followers, and those followers are they mimic what's being done before them. Hey, this group idea worked somewhere else. This sponsorship worked somewhere else. Well, but we still need leaders. We still need idea creators and those kinds of people that can really help push the industry forward and not kind of rest on its laurels. So if we can talk about where are the jobs now, it's common when asking someone that's trying to break into the business to hear things like, I want to be a general manager or a scout, or I want to work in community relations, marketing, or public relations. Now recognize if you say that you're not going to stand out, and there really aren't entry-level positions for those jobs. Maybe internships if you're lucky. There's one general manager per team. From a numbers perspective, you have a better chance to be a point guard, a quarterback, or a pitcher on the team. I'm not suggesting that you shouldn't have dreams. I don't want to get on here and crush people's dreams. But put those dreams into perspective and figure out a path that gives you the best likelihood of reaching your dreams. You don't just say, I want to go to Dallas, jump in a car, and drive there. You have to pull out a map and chart your course. So I like to say that there's the same thing in your career. How are you going to get to where you want to go? And I don't mean that you have to have a step-by-step flow chart, but I think you have to have ideas of that. And you have to put some strategy and thinking into it beforehand. If you take a look at industry job boards, you'll notice a heavy emphasis on sales positions. There are more jobs in sales than any other discipline in sports. My title doesn't state it, but I most definitely am in sales. And if you would have told me in high school or even college that I would be in sales, I would have told you that you're crazy. Sales skills are always in demand. Let me tell you a secret. Everyone in an organization sells. The president of the team, customer service, receptionist, the general manager. If you look at college coaches and the recruiting they do, they're in sales as much as coaching. They're all selling themselves to the organization.
So Jeff, when you're saying, and I think all of us that teach marketing agree, even though it's sometimes a hard sell, no pun intended, that everybody sells, is it still accurate to say if you can go to a team and you can prove to them that you can move tickets as a starting place, that they're going to find a place for you? We would. We believe that, and we've preached that for since our inception. We have plenty of people that have gone through kind of our training at early stages of their career that are now presidents of teams, vice presidents, senior vice presidents, executive vice presidents. And guess what? They're not just selling now. They're doing a variety of things. But in terms of being an entry point into the industry, it was fantastic. It got them into the business. And that's the key thing. I like to say that the first job in sports is the best job in sports. So getting in the business is the key. Once you're in that, then you can find out what you're really good at. And then, if you work it right and you really work hard and you're loyal to your original employer, they'll start to probably give you more things to do, sample things, and become more well-rounded. Now, if you get in and just use it as a stepping stone, you probably won't develop internal credibility and internal kind of career equity, as I like to say, and you'll end up looking for another job with nobody supporting you. So if you do it right, it's absolutely a great stepping stone. And I've got friends that are vice presidents of ticket sales. That's all they ever wanted to do, and those are great ways to make a living. So each person's unique, and not every situation is right for them. Interviewing clearly is selling yourself. Dating, for some of us, it's a bigger sale than others. You have to get used to that concept, and it is really a reality of working in the sports business. So to that point of where I was just talking, where you start is not where you'll end, and
What I mean by that is most people think about the league that they favor the most. So clearly the NFL is far and away the most commercially successful in the U.S. right now. There's intense competition for the few jobs that are open in the league. If your dream is to work in the league, you shouldn't just focus on jobs in that league. I'm not really a fan of absolutes, but I will guarantee you that where you start is not where you'll end. If you intern for an NFL team, there's almost zero likelihood that you'll end up as a team president or a general manager. Brian Cashman is about the only executive that I think mirrors that with the Yankees. But that's, I can name maybe one. That's clearly the exception and not the rule.
So is it still, I've always told students in the past that probably the best place to get a start is going to be in baseball, because with the minor leagues there are just sheer numbers of opportunities more than any other league. Is that's still a good piece of advice, or should I be modifying that?
No, I think that's a great piece of advice, because not only are there a lot of, there maybe don't have as many employees as one major league team. There's also hundreds of minor league teams, so there's more teams. And when you work there, you get exposure to so many different things. They have less resources. There's less specialization. So, 20 people or 10 people might be doing a job that 50 or 100 are doing at a major league team. So you get your fingers in so many different things. And, minor league sports is a fantastic. I love taking my kids to minor league games as well as major league games. It's a fantastic outlet and a great learning spot. And so to that point, I would consider leagues in sports that are also growing, not only the minor league, but Major League Soccer is on the rise. They've done a very smart job. I'm a huge fan of how Don Garber in the league has done a smart job of growing kind of at a safe and not a breakneck pace. I think they originally out of the gates in the 90s, they started a little fast and they had to pull back a couple of teams. They're now growing, I think, incrementally every year. The numbers are trending really well. The metrics are great. And as a result, I think they've taken a measured approach, which is really working for MLS. And that, whether you like soccer or not, you don't have to love the sport. Now, if you hate the sport, it's going to be hard to work in it. But I'll give an example. The vice president of ticket sales for the local team here, the Portland Timbers, I recruited him and placed him there 4 or 5 years ago before the team had an MLS team, or before they were an MLS team. They were the Portland Beavers, which is a AAA baseball team, and which isn't around anymore. Well, when I called him about the job, he worked in the NHL as a director of ticket sales. I said, there's a VP of ticket sales position. It's AAA baseball. There's, oh, by the way, a little minor league soccer team out here, but we don't know what's going to happen with that. And he said, well, I don't like soccer, but yeah, baseball sounds great. So it's funny. He's still there to this day, and we'll have a kind of an end of the year lunch every year, and we talk about the fact that when I first started talking to him, he hates soccer, and now he helped open essentially a new facility and one of the best, most successful teams in the league in terms of ticket sales. So it's pretty funny, the things that end up happening and transpire in someone's career. Lacrosse is getting more popular. It's more popular in the Northwest than ever. It's still a niche sport. Extreme sports, as probably your students know better than I do. There's growing niche sports there. And I think to the other point about minor league sports is that you're going to have less competition to get in the door. There's less people applying to a team in Elmira, New York, than to the New York Jets or New York Giants. So less competition, a lot of needs. Baseball winter meetings, there's a plus and minus of going to those kind of things to get noticed, but a lot of people have started their careers that way. So those are all kinds of ways to think about how you might be able to get into the industry or where the jobs are.
I don't want students in particular to underestimate the value of learning a lot of different areas. I've been fortunate to have a couple students intern, one actually with Mike Veck with the Saints, and another one where he set them up at another team in the area in Duluth there. And they did it all. They were selling tickets and they were cleaning off bleachers. In fact, one of them called and said the general manager was fired and his wife was in charge of ticket sales. Now they're both gone. We haven't replaced them. And my comment was, well, you must be hating this, because no, I'm loving it. I'm working 18-hour days and loving every minute of it when we're at home. So that whole cross-training, I think, makes them obviously there's a few more steps before they're an executive, but it makes them a little bit differentiated from those who might know a little bit about one niche.
Agreed. I think your point is well taken. A quick note on education, and you might be able to talk more adroitly at this, but from my understanding, there are well over 100 undergraduate sport management and sports administration programs in terms of collegiate programs across the country. I say that the exact number is a bit unknown because there are many schools that offer business degrees with sports management minors, sports studies, leisure studies, sports sciences, kinesiology. They're in different departments. Graduate programs seem to be the same. I'd estimate at least 100 additional sport management graduate programs. I do include in that the online sport management degrees, brick and mortar sport management graduate degrees, and MBAs with sport management concentrations in that number. Because these programs are sexy and are revenue drivers for colleges and universities, they have been growing. I've seen a few colleges pull back just because of funding issues, but generally they're growing. So with that note, consider the number of candidates those programs are turning out every year, along with the general business majors and career changers that get a late start trying to get into the industry. So keep that in mind in terms of that competition. So let's talk about how you get started here quickly. Honestly, I wish I could talk to the 18-year-old version of me and give that younger me the advice that you're getting today. You have the benefit of time, so take advantage of your good fortune. I do believe that internships are a double-edged sword. If you graduate from college and are forced to take internships to get into the industry, I think you're in a tough spot. You might have student loans that you have to pay off, or you're otherwise less inclined to take a non-paying or a lower-paying position with an uncertain future. Interning now will greatly benefit you, or when you're in college. How will it benefit you? If you have time on your side and you intern for a local team or a collegiate athletic program, you may get a chance to build a long-term relationship there, which could allow you to get exposure to more people in the organization, get more challenging assignments and duties, or maybe even a full-time job down the line. Internships are very valuable ways to get exposure to different parts of the organization. And if you get those internships out of the way now, you may be in a position to take a full-time position when you graduate from college. So sports, like other industries, they have a unique language and jargon, and getting into the business via these internships and taking sports marketing classes like your students are now will allow them to learn more quickly about that language. And as you get some experience under your belt, I suggest being a little bit more discriminating about the internships you take. Ask more questions about who you'll work under, what your responsibilities will be, what they expect of you, how many previous interns have been moved to full-time positions or are working in bigger jobs in sports. Develop skills that will further your career translate into future jobs, but please be aware many clubs will hire interns to do the job of full-time people because it keeps their costs lower. That's okay for a short period of time, but don't get stuck in that kind of trap for too long. It's never a bad thing to have contacts and to network among them. There's an art to networking, and we don't really have time to go into that today. Most don't have those contacts. They have to achieve them or earn them, or they don't know what to do with them. Our experience is it's not who you know, but what you can do that will get you hired. Who you know could get you in a meeting, or could get you an interview, maybe an internship, or possibly a full-time job. But I really bet that you don't get that job unless you prove to them you're the right person for it.
Jeff, my phrase that I've always shared with my students is who you know will get you there, but what you know will keep you there.
I love it. That's more succinct and better than what I just said. Perfect.
Well, it's taken me 25 years to come up with it, so don't be too tough on yourself.
I like it. Just being passionate for sports, you hear that a lot. That's not enough. Knowing more sports trivia than the next guy doesn't cut it either. I was kind of that guy in high school that people would ask me these questions. You thought that made you powerful, but how many of your friends love sports? Probably all of them, or at least most of them. So we hear, passion all the time. But to work in the sports business, it means you need to be as interested or close to as interested in the business side. Again, because of the glamour and sex appeal associated with the industry, the line to get in is long and it moves really slowly. Again, the conventional wisdom we talked about says that it's who you know that could get you to the front of the line. It won't necessarily get you in the door. I think that you have to consider what is your competitive advantage over other people. That's something you don't have to answer today, but it's a good idea to start thinking about what makes me different. What do I bring to the table different than the thousands of other people that are trying to get in the business? What are employers looking for? I would say that a college degree is pretty close to a requirement to break into the industry. You can choose to get even more specific than that with a sports marketing degree, though personally I don't see a great benefit in getting that level of specialization if you're getting a business degree. And if you don't work in sports, that specialization won't necessarily help you. I spoke about it not being who you know, but what you can do a moment ago. What I mean by that really is skills. And skills are information and knowledge that help you do a job. That said, it really doesn't matter if you can't generate results. So you have to put some effort behind those skills as well. You can't just have them and unused talent, saying goes. Um, Information, in terms of knowing what Joe DiMaggio's batting average was during day games. Again, that might help you on a ESPN, short-lived kind of a trivia show, but it's not going to help you long term. Strong communication skills, both written and verbal, are crucial, and to me, getting more important all the time. Being a good team player, being coachable by the management staff that you work for. You can't train passion, and many employers are looking for candidates that have, let's call it, fire in their belly. I like saying that a little more than just passion, meaning they're going to take that passion and they're going to not take no for an answer. They're going to get the job done during challenging circumstances. You are going to work long hours in sports, so being hungry, having a strong work ethic will go far. Getting the most out of your resources is important. You hear a lot of companies today say that they're expecting their employees to do more with less. The economy has been rough, and I don't know what shape it's going to be when you guys graduate, but it means also being creative and innovative to get results. If I look at longevity, what I mean there is that organizations are excited when they interview someone that they can project stepping into bigger positions with the organization and who can take on more responsibility. But that's an exciting thing from someone interviewed. As the sports business has gotten more and more competitive, there are more teams, costs are escalating, owners accordingly are expecting a return on their investment. So while many of the major league owners know they make money as the franchise value increases, meaning they realize their return when the stake in the team is sold, they don't have an appetite to lose money. Also, there are corporations that are involved in ownership, and stakeholders demand accountability and bottom line results. So franchises are being sold for record amounts, like the Dodgers' recent $2 billion sale. So the owners have to be willing to either absorb heavy losses and or increase revenue via broadcast rights, higher price tickets, concessions, and so on. Yeah, billionaire owners up here, like a Paul Allen, who owns the Seahawks and Trailblazers, and he originally, I think he ran the teams as a hobby. As he started taking a pounding and his fortune started waning, his financial team buckled down, started controlling costs a lot more, and now they have a stronger group of business people that are operating the teams. To boil the front office down to the basics, we're specifically talking about the business side, again, not baseball or football ops. Solid operators are looking for someone that can either bring in revenues or cut expenses. Getting towards the end here, let's have a little fun with some of the top 10 job seeker mistakes that I've seen. I like to call the first one the super fan or the curse of the Sports Center generation. People want to work in the industry because of the glamour and sex appeal. It's a great industry. I've loved it for 10 years, but it's certainly not all glamour. This comes out really quickly in an interview when the person is asked, why sports, or why do you want to work for us? And the response is the fact that I'm passionate about sports, or I'm the biggest Yankees fan out there. Who isn't passionate about that prospect? Again, it will not get you a job. Maybe an internship, but certainly not the job. Number two, I would say that if Rob Parnell started in the industry with the Lakers and not the Clippers, that my company wouldn't exist. He wouldn't be as good as he is today, and his performance would never have been noticed. You'll get noticed more for your performance in the club's going through a down cycle, so keep that in mind. You have absolutely no control of what happens on the field, the pitch, the court, and the ice. And if you let that affect your attitude the next day in the office, that will affect your performance, and I think that'll be a tough thing for you to stay in the industry. Number three, if you're lucky, your resume may get you an interview, but if you don't have effective skills or aren't properly prepared, it'll be tough to get a job. Number four, we discussed how difficult it is to break into the industry. We focus on just getting in through one door, whether that's operations or marketing or PR, or only with one team, the team you love, or just focusing on the majors. The sad truth is that you'll probably end up in another industry. Number five, if you're sitting there thinking to yourself, well, it'll be different for me because I'm me, I'm the best candidate. Well, think about all the playground legends you hear about, in Rucker Park or other playgrounds that you hear about but you never see because they believe that, they should have been in the pros if they just have a shot. You don't want to be the business equivalent of that. Number six, education is not a bad thing. Everyone in our organization has degrees, some advanced degrees. So I think an undergraduate degree is required in many positions. However, that we find all too often candidates that aren't sure what they want to do, they turn to a postgraduate education as the cure. Don't get a law degree or an MBA unless you have a good sense of what you want to do with it and that an advanced degree is probably necessary to get there. Get some experience before getting your additional education to give you some perspective and to make you more valuable. Number 7, taking one internship after another in a scattershot approach, hoping it's going to land you a full-time job, is not a best practice. Be strategic about the internships you take, and you can be more strategic the more internships you have. I mean, the first one, you may just say, hey, I'm lucky to get this, I'm going to take it. But again, make sure you know where the position could lead or what skills you'll learn before accepting, or whether, where those people might have landed jobs later. You can only work for free or little money for so long. At some point, your internship should lead to a job. If they don't, you'll be forced to leave the industry to earn income or face a beating from your parents because you're living in the basement. Number 8, many people do find their way into sports and are disillusioned that sports is more of a business and not just the glamour and sex appeal I talked about. While there is some of that as well, it's much more than that. It's a business, and hard work and effort is going to be required to get the job, and as you said earlier, to keep that job. Number 9, you control your brand and how you're perceived by other people. And remember that perception is reality. If you're putting compromising pictures and information about you on social networking sites, it's probably not going to help your career or get you a job. I've seen too many cases where employers can access that information and make a hiring decision based on what they see and read. While that's illegal, they just won't hire you, and they will not tell you why. I just read the story about the 22-year-old in California that put a private Facebook post about racial slur about the president, talking about how maybe he'll get assassinated. It was a stunning, I guess it's surprising, but I shouldn't be surprised anymore. But she got fired from Old Stone Creamery, and now it'll be really hard for her to get a job. And watching an interview with her, I don't think she gets it. So you use other people, unfortunately, as examples. Then 10, careless communications. I mean any written or verbal communications that you'll have with an employer that harms your brand. This could be a poorly written resume, sloppy follow-up letters and emails, or even voicemails, and otherwise unprofessional communications that really don't speak well of you. Please use spell check. One tip, read your resume backwards to make sure that nothing slips through the cracks. I got to wrap up here pretty quickly. So a couple of realities of working in the industry. If you want a 9-to-5 job, look in another industry. When the team plays on nights, weekends, holidays, you're expected to be there. When others want to be entertained, you're working behind the scenes. We've touched on the heavy supply of candidates coming in the industry, and the number of jobs clearly do not match that. Because of that supply, employers are able to pay less than other industries. You can earn a nice living in sports, but you will have friends making more money in other industries. If you're good, you can pass them up as you remain in the industry, and then you will have a cooler job and a better paying one. Strictly from a numbers perspective, there are only so many teams in each city. If you're tied to a city, your universe of opportunities immediately is less. The more flexible you are to move, the better your chances are to get into the industry and probably remain there, because you have to continue relocating frequently to move up in the industry. Because of the things I mentioned, the long hours, potentially lower pay to start, the uniqueness of working in sports, if you don't have a supportive family, you'll probably be in a tough spot. And if you want to work for a specific team because they're winning championships or they're on TV all the time, or they're your favorite team, your opportunity to break in with them is limited, especially if they are really successful. They have no trouble finding people for their openings, and you will notice they have lots of openings. So with that information, I really hope that I didn't crush anyone's dreams of working in the industry and just provided some good background information on potential careers in the business. So if there's any time for questions or you want to talk about anything else, I'm certainly willing.
Yeah, we got a couple questions that are coming in, Jeff. I know you don't necessarily do as much training now as the company started out with. So what is it like when you reach out to a potential employee to fill a spot with a team? What's that first interview like at that point?
First interview with the team?
Well, are you gonna do some interviewing, or you connect them directly with the team to start with?
So I do first stage of interviews. I'm trying to get back without my screen share.
No, you're fine.
So from a standpoint of first interviews, we do what my job is to identify. I'm working with one organization right now where I have to do the pre-screening and first interviews and deliver somewhere between 6 or 7 candidates for his first interview. So that's their process. They wanted me to really winnow down a list of dozens and dozens of people to here are the best candidates for the job. They have the skill set, they're a cultural match, and they seem to be someone that they should be doing a first interview for. So that frequently is a big part of my job.
Give me an idea. What is there such thing as a typical position you guys would fill? What would be the most common?
Boy, I would say really heavy right now. We're in the corporate partnerships world, so corporate sponsorship positions, both with teams. The job we filled with the Celtics was a director of corporate partnerships recently. Um, I'm working on a number of vice presidents of partnership sales, director of marketing of live events, and that's the concert business. So with teams, we do a lot of work in ticket sales. So directors of suite sales. I'm filling a director of group sales position with an NFL team right now. So really anything that from mid to senior level kinds of positions, mid management up through chief revenue officers, chief marketing officers, SVPs, EVPs, and
Okay, let's say we'll go with NBA. An NBA team advertises they need, or not advertise, but contacts you and say we need a vice president of corporate partnership sales. I come in as a candidate. What are 3 or 4 questions you might ask me that our students might not, or even teachers might not think off the top of their head would be the kind of question we'd have to answer?
Well, I mean, there's a ton of background that we would do, but really important, I think, to anybody that I don't know, that maybe the candidates don't think of is why. I'll take a look at their resume and say, why have you made these moves in your career? So if they're in a job for 18 months, I have people contact me about the job I'm working on now. We don't post jobs, we fill them, but the word gets around to our network that we're filling a position. So someone new contacted me and he'd been with his company for 6 months or something. What are we really doing here? You've been there for 6 months. Why should we consider you for another move? Why are you going to be sellable to an employer? So for me, and not only that, but the positions before, if you've been in a job for 3 years or 5 years, those are great numbers, and you've made a progression to bigger jobs. There should be that progression in your career. And if you can explain that, if there's not a good, I like to say that I'm a storyteller, a nonfiction storyteller. That's what you should think about your career, is you're telling this captivating, compelling story. And if you can't justify some of the moves you made, you might have been laid off, that's legitimate. But if you jump from job to job to job, you're in a totally difficult spot, and you won't be considered for a number of employers. Blue chip brands will not consider you if you're a job offer. So I'd say, reason for leaving positions, drilling down on those kind of goals and asking tough questions. So, people that are in sales, I'm interviewing a lot of salespeople. They can give great answers, but it's the follow-up questions, the second and third level of questions, where you start to kind of sniff out if they're BSing you or if they're legitimate. And so I think that's part of my job is to snuff that out. So if you're being dishonest, people that are lying, you'll start to catch them in their lies. If you ask good questions, you'll start to say, you might be able to get through a first interview, but you're not going to get through a second, because we're going to ask tougher questions, and you're going to, give answers that contradict earlier ones. You say, wait a second, that doesn't really make sense with the story you were telling me earlier.
Nat Ellis, one of our teachers who actually happens to be out in Oregon, is curious how, and I think this can go with any profession, but how do you maintain that passion or that fire in the belly that you talked about once you've been in a position for a period of time?
That's such a unique individual thing that I think that you start to feel it. I mean, when it starts to wane, and you say, I've had people that are really honest, and they'll say, I'm getting burned out in the job that I'm in. I need to change. Okay, so that happens after a certain. I talked to someone from a large, one of the biggest entertainment companies in the world that hosts tons of events. And he's working 80 to 100 events a year, and he has a senior level position. And he said, I got 3 kids, and it's not, my personal and professional are not linking up. It's time for a change. So I think that it's, again, part of the time of your life that you will change during the course of your career. You can't do what you were doing all of the time. There's going to be competing priorities and realities in your life. So I think if you start to see the passion dry up, that's what, I talked about it earlier, the 5 or 6, within 5 years of working with my last company, I said, I'm not excited about going to work every day. The people were great, but the job just didn't excite me. So to me, that was a real bell that said I better start really quietly looking. It took me a year, but I found game face. So I would say that's a good way to consider that. If you're starting to feel that way, you probably should start to quietly consider other options.
Well, Jeff, after getting halfway through my 32nd year of teaching, I can understand exactly what you're saying about making sure that you have that, and it is a personal thing. I think a lot of times we hear about people being burned out, and oftentimes they weren't lit to begin with. If you enter it with a passion, there's probably a much better chance you'll keep that fire in the belly.
Especially with the long hours we talked about. You can't fake it. I mean, you might be able to fake it for a short period of time, but you won't fake it that long. So that's a good way to put it in terms of having a kind of fire lit.
That's for sure. We've got interesting coming up next. Our next speaker is Jimmy Delaney, who's the Senior Director of Marketing and Sales down at University of Tennessee, and he's kind of an interesting case study himself. He started out literally in my high school program 15 years ago in sports marketing, interned at the University of Tennessee, and people kept leaving and moving on, and he kept moving his way up to the ladder there. So it's there might be some typical, but I'm not sure there's such thing as a normal progression in sports.
No, and that speaks to collegiate sports, where you are going to see maybe tenure is a little bit more important. You know, in professional sports, a lot of times it's not about tenure; it's a meritocracy, and how well you perform and produce will dictate. You're going to jump people, and that you're going to have a lot of people that have been in an organization less, but they have a higher ceiling. So it depends. Again, collegiate, you might benefit from sticking around. Other organizations, I know people that will call and say, I need to leave this organization to move up. I get that call all the time. So you have to be aware and be savvy about it. But my advice would be, make sure that you build career equity with that organization and your employer. Work very hard. Don't get wanderlust and start spending all your day looking for a job. Until you leave, you better work really well and deserve the right then to leave and get a good reference.
Yeah, I'm going to hit you up with one last question before we let you go. What's the number one reason people fail at their jobs in the sports business? What is there a trend or a key thing that you can point to that you really try to get through your employees' minds there?
I wish it was a sexy or exciting thing to say, but I think to me it's not. It's basic. It's effort. Again, there's a lot of smart people in the business, but there's great sayings about how smart people will fail. Essentially talent fails if effort is not there. And other people that are not quite as smart, not quite as talented, if they work harder, if they outwork that person, they're going to overtake them. So to me, the failure is one of effort. And that's something. The good news is you can control that.
Yeah.
You can control that. Yes, it's important to keep learning and not get stuck in a rut. Everyone finds that in their career at some point. Those are challenges. But if you're in a good organization where you're learning and you're working really hard, your head's down. Guess what? That's what I'm here for. I'm here to go find those people. That's my job, is to go tap that person on the shoulder and say, hey, I've heard great things about you. Can we talk about other opportunities? Sometimes people say great timing. Other times they say, yeah, timing's bad. But I tell them about a job, and it might be the career job of their dreams. So that's what recruiters are for, quite honestly, behind the scenes. If you're working really hard and you're putting your head down, you will get noticed by other people in the industry. That is something you have to worry about.
Well, Jeff, I appreciate you taking the time out there to jump online with us and share in this face-to-face episode of our whole sports marketing conference. It's a little something different we're trying this year, and we've had some fun, and you've given it a great kickoff, and I'm looking forward to maybe hooking up with you again on some more detailed type topics. So I think this is great for our students, and as a teacher, and I think I can speak for a lot of us that teach marketing, sports marketing, it gives us some insight so that we might appear just a little less clueless to our students.
I think it's an innovative thing, Jeff, so I appreciate you inviting me. I'm happy to join you anytime. Again, feel free to have people send me messages either via Twitter or email through our website. I'd be happy to give them any answers that I can as well.
Well, great. Well, we thank you for your time. We invite people to tune in for our next episode coming up with Jimmy Delaney from the University of Tennessee. So have a great rest of the day, Jeff.
You as well. Take care, Jeff. Bye-bye.
Thank you.